Welcome back, everybody, to another ride and ramble with Dual Sport Doug. You can see here that I'm on my Ibex 450, so let's talk about why I bought an Ibex 450 versus a different adventure bike. When I first got the hankering for an adventure bike, back in 2021, I put a deposit down on a Yamaha Tenere 700. I canceled the deposit after a few months and then reinstated my deposit at a different dealer, then canceled it again, and then ended up putting another deposit on one, and then did end up buying it. Spent a whole bunch of money outfitting the bike, tank bag, new handlebars, didn't quite get to the grip heaters yet, GPS mount, ordered up a bunch of luggage for it with the intent of doing a backcountry discovery route ride on it. I live kind of situated between the Idaho BDR and the Washington BDR, so it would be easy for me to ride either one of them. I rode the bike a few times, got up to my break-in mileage, changed the oil, took it on a street ride once, and then it was time to put it away for the winter. And then the following year, 2023, broke my wrist riding my KTM 450, so I was sidelined, didn't ride all summer. Then I ended up buying a Polaris Ranger to upgrade my old Ranger to a newer model. Then was blown away at how much interest I was making, paying a month on the payments on it, because I financed about half of it. And then I gave a long, hard, careful thought to where my priorities were, and I decided that owning the T7 wasn't a super high priority, because I had two other bikes at the time. So I sold the T7 and then took that money and paid off the Ranger. Basically what it came down to was the Ranger was a far more important piece of equipment to have than the T7. So literally the Ranger is a piece of equipment. I don't consider it a toy. I use it around the house a lot. It can double as a toy though, where I can load it up on a trailer and go out and drive it around the backcountry. Well, then fast forward to early 2024, I finally did sell the T7. Paid off the Ranger. So by mid-2024, I stumbled across the CF Moto Ibex 450. Then a few months later, saw some information on the 2025 Tenere 700 and thought, okay, well, maybe it's time that I buy another adventure bike, because the DRZ 400 that I have is not something that I would want to hop on the highway with, ride at several hundred miles to the beginning of either the Washington BDR or Idaho BDR, ride the route. I mean, I could totally ride it. There was a stupid deer about ready to cross the road. I could totally ride the route, but it would not be fun on either of those routes. Then hopping back on the highway and riding several more hundred miles home, because pavement riding on a small dual sport bike is just not fun. Looking at adventure bikes again, one of the things that I kind of got turned off with the T7 was how top heavy it was. And I knew that there was it would be very, very difficult for me to pick that bike up if I dumped it, tipped it over off-road. And I factored that into my whole broken wrist scenario too. So that sort of was a minor reason why I decided to sell it. But I looked at the CF Moto Ibex 450 or 450 MT when it first came out, and was getting a bunch of YouTube reviews, and a lot of people said it's like a mini Tenere 700. I thought, well, yeah, that sounds like an interesting bike. So I kind of set my sights on one towards the latter part of 2024, and then put a deposit on one. And then Suzuki announced the DRZ 4S, so I put a deposit on one of those as well, just because I wanted a new DRZ after seeing that Suzuki was going to come out with the 400S. Well, then the Ibex 450 arrived in the US right towards the end of January, but at that point I had already canceled my deposit, deciding I couldn't justify buying two bikes because I was committed to buying the 400S or the 4S. But as soon as I saw that they had arrived at my local dealer, which basically I discovered that like 2 days after they arrived, I went and looked at the Ibex 450, and I was pretty impressed with it. The fit and finish was really nice. Seeing it in person was a whole lot more intriguing than just watching a bunch of videos about it. Then, I also wanted to hold out and wait for the 2025 Tenere 700 because I had heard that it was getting some updates. So the 2025 T7 showed up at my local Yamaha dealer, and I went and looked at it. I think at that point I had already looked at and sat on the Ibex 450. One of the things that seemed to be a little bit of a turnoff to me as far as bikes go is how fat the hips are, these big fairings on the Ibex 450. It is really wide. Factoring that in compared to the T7. The T7 is a very slim and narrow bike up front. So my local Yamaha dealer got the T7, the 2025 T7 in, and I sat on it and I picked it up and jostled it around back and forth with it off the side stand, and then did the same thing with a 2024 T7, and I was blown away at how much differently the 2025 carried its weight. It just had a lower center of gravity. So that almost made me want to buy a 2025 T7. Ultimately, I decided, because I have a variety of other bikes, and that whatever adventure bike I bought wouldn't get ridden nearly as much as the other bikes, that having the amount of money tied up in a T7 that would be required to buy the bike and outfit it, I just ruled the T7 out. So I contemplated buying the CF Moto Ibex 450, or it's called the 450 MT overseas, and ultimately you can see that's what I did end up doing. At the end of the day, I thought, if I wanted an adventure bike, I don't have a problem buying this one because it's a lot lower outlay of cash when I factor in the fact that I won't be riding as much as I would my other bikes. So it's not too heartbreaking having a smaller amount of money sitting invested in a bike tied up or sitting there in the garage not getting ridden a whole lot compared to a T7. So that's what I ended up doing. So back to the Ibex versus the T7. If money wasn't an object, then I would probably have opted for the T7. But I just didn't really want to have like $12,000 in motorcycle and another several $1,000s in accessories tied up in a bike. And these, I swear these people must be feeding the turkeys. There was a huge flock of them out here last night too, and a bunch of babies. At least they're not in the road tonight. $586 miles. How close can I get her to 600 miles on this ride today? Sadly, I probably won't be able to get this bike out and ride in the dirt much this year. We just have to see. It'd be on August 2nd. I'm kind of running out of time. Only reason I say I'm kind of running out of time is I work at a school, and they ban people from taking vacation the 2 weeks leading up to when school starts, which is super frustrating, especially this year because school starts like a week and a half earlier than normal. It starts in late August as opposed to the day after Labor Day, or 2 days after Labor Day weekend. Oh, let's see. This little street back here has some really large pieces of property with some really neat looking houses on it, and houses with big shops behind them.